Hi everyone, today I'm going to be reviewing this absolutely gorgeous semi-mesh underbust corset made by Contessa Gothique Design. And those of you who are currently subscribed to Foundations Revealed might remember this corset actually, because a couple of months ago the designer Bizzare had written an article about the construction of this corset. So without further ado, let's go on with the review. So here is the front, the side, the back, and the other side. So this corset is actually made to measure. It's made for my body. So if you were to commission a corset in your size, then obviously the height and the circumferential measurements might be a little bit different. But for those of you who are curious, the center front here is about 11 inches. It is a little bit higher up on the underbust to lap area around the princess seam because it has this heart shape. So it's about 12 inches here. And then on the side is a little bit shorter. It's about 10 inches from the top to the bottom. Now, I don't consider this a real long line corset because it comes a little bit over the iliac crest. You can see the curve of my iliac crest right there. So it comes down maybe about 1.5 inches, but it's not coming down like totally to my lap area. I can still bend very, very easily in this. In terms of the silhouette, I really love the hourglass shape that this corset gives me. It actually has more of a conical torso. So for me, it's bordering onto the wasp waist silhouette. So here is the beautiful corset laying flat, and you can see the transparent mesh panels here. So for the material of this, it's 2 main layers. No matter what panel you're looking at, it's still basically 2 main layers. So for the coutil panels, you can see that it has spot broche on the outside, which is strong enough in itself to be a single layer corset, but then it's lined in herringbone coutil. So these coutil panels are extremely sturdy. And then for the mesh panels, it's also 2 layers. The outer mesh is a little bit more coarse. It's a little bit more, I would say that it's stronger. And then on the inside, it is a mesh that's a little bit softer, has a bit of a smaller hole. And so if I'm wearing this next to my skin, then I actually don't mind the feeling of the mesh because the softer tulle is next to my skin as opposed to the more coarse mesh on the outside. Now, I usually wear this with a liner anyway, but it's still very nice to have. Now, for the construction and assembly of this corset, if I turn it on its side, now it has a boned Modesty panel at the back here, so it's not going to lie totally flat. But for the pattern of this, it's a 6-panel pattern, so 12 panels total, I believe. So panel 1 is made from coutil. Panel 2 is made of mesh. Panels 3 and 4 are again made from coutil. Panel 5 is mesh, and panel 6 is coutil. And for the actual assembly of this, I don't want to go into too much detail since it is a paid article in Foundations Revealed, but just from observation, the mesh panels, the 2 layers of mesh panels were flat lined, and then they are sandwiched in between the 2 layers of coutil on adjacent sides, obviously. Now, each panel of the coutil has boning channels, but there are also single boning channels laid down in the middle of these mesh panels to give a little bit more support. Now, the way that this corset is patterned, there's very little tension taken on the mesh panels itself. The vast majority of the tension is supported by the waist tape and these coutil bias binding at the top and bottom, and then the bone in the center of the panel helps to prevent the mesh from buckling or wrinkling when it's on me, and I think it's really an ingenious design. So you can very clearly see that there is a waist tape present, 1-inch wide Petersham ribbon, I believe, running through all panels of this corset. And the mesh panels is actually exposed on the inside, so you can feel that next to your skin, but in the coutil panels it is sandwiched in between the layers, locked down quite securely. So here's a close-up of the binding, and you can see that it is made actually from bias strips of spot broche, so it's very strong binding. It's able to take some tension on its own, and it's very neatly sewn down. So I believe that it is initially sewn down by machine on the front side, but then on the back side, you can see that the edge perfectly matches up with the initial edge that was created, and then it was sewn down so you don't see any stitches on the inside or the outside, and you don't see any strange overlapping areas in the transparent panels. And while I have you here for the close-up, I'm going to show you the gorgeous embellishment here on the hips. It is hand-sewn black lace applique with little Swarovski crystals inside each of the flowers of this applique. So it's very subtle since it's black on more black, but it is absolutely gorgeous. This corset has a boned floating modesty panel at the back, so it's suspended on the laces and it has steel bones in it to keep it rigid, and it's nicely curved so that even if I'm wearing this corset completely closed in the back, you still can't really see the modesty panel through the lacing panels here. You can also see that there is about 1 inch wide modesty placket in the front. The busk in this corset is about 10 inches long and it has 5 pins equidistantly spaced. What I really like about this busk is that it actually has a matte black coating over it, so there's no silver to sort of detract you from the rest of the black on black aesthetic of this corset. So I really appreciate those little touches there. And it is a standard width busk, about 1/2 inch on each side. This corset is actually surprisingly heavily boned for its size. It has a total of 22 bones, not including the busk and not including the modesty panel. So it's actually single boned on each seam at least, and it also has additional bones in the center of the panels. So they are all 1/4 inch wide spiral steel bones, I believe. So you can see here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then 2 flat steel bones next to the grommets here, making 11, so 22 on both sides. Here's a close-up of the grommets. They are also finished in black or gunmetal gray, and these are teeny tiny, so they might actually be size X00 instead of 00. So it has an internal hole of about 4 millimeters instead of 5 millimeters, which would be 00, or 6 millimeters, which would be 0. So if that doesn't make sense to you, that's okay. Just know that it's really teeny tiny, but it's holding in remarkably well. You can see that at the waistline, these grommets are set a little bit closer together for ease of cinching. None of them are pulling out of the fabric. None of them are catching on the laces. And here, if I pull the modesty panel aside, you can see the underside of these grommets. They've all rolled really beautifully. There are no splits or cracks in them whatsoever. They're all holding in very, very well. There's no sign of damage around the grommet. The laces themselves are very nice, very utilitarian, not too fancy, but that's okay because the corset itself is fancy enough. All that I care about is that it's very strong, no stretch to them whatsoever. I believe it's finished in cotton, so 1/4 inch wide, flat laces. Contessa Gothique Design is a bespoke corset company, so if you liked a couple things about this corset but you want a few things tweaked in the style, then they would be able to accommodate that for you. But generally speaking, if you wanted some sort of semi-mesh underbust corset made to measure for your body, it would start at about $280 US. So this concludes my review of the semi-mesh underbust corset made by Contessa Gothique Design. I hope you enjoyed it and you learned something new about mesh corsets. If you did like it, then please be sure to click that like button because it helps support my channel. And if you have any comments or questions about this corset or Contessa Gothique Design in general, please be free to leave them down below and I'll get back to you as best I can. So thank you so much, and I will see you after the weekend for the next video. Bye!